Have you ever worked or volunteered for a company or organization and you just couldn't seem to mesh with your coworkers, or if it wasn't them, it's your superiors or supervisors? If it wasn't them, just something about the organization as a whole just didn't seem to click with you. I've felt that before. My name is Jay Johnson Grant. I'm currently enrolled in Com 622 at Liberty University Online. And today I'm going to be discussing with you Chapter 3 from our textbook, Organizational Behaviors, which is all about individual characteristics. So if you click over to the next slide, I'm going to give you a brief overview of what I'll discuss during this presentation. So first I'll talk about individual differences, personality frameworks. Furthering that, I'll talk about personality traits, and then intelligence. And lastly, I'll be discussing with you all various learning styles. So if we go to the next slide, we'll go ahead and delve right into the subject of individual differences. The textbook defines individual differences as personal attributes that vary from one person to another. Now, because we all have these differences, we may find that we won't always fit or successfully match with a particular organization. The textbook gives us 4 different types or forms of fit: person job fit, person group fit, almost missed my finger, person organization fit, or person vocation fit. Now, I'm not going to leave you hanging. If you go to the next slide, I'm going to expound on each type of fit. So let's go. Person job fit. In short, what this means is that a person's skills must match the job description, and a person's desires and motivations for having that job position must match the rewards and the attributes that the job is giving back to the person. Person group fit, which is our second one, that's the extent to which an individual fits with the work groups and supervisors' work styles, skills, and goals. So, are you a good team player? Can you use collaborative skills very well? Can you have a cohesive bond with those people that you're working with? That's not always going to happen, not because one person's negative and one person's positive, but again, individual differences. Sometimes we just don't click. The next is person-organization fit. This is a fit between an individual's values, beliefs, personalities, with the organization's values, norms, and the very culture of that organization. So do you as an individual, or me, since I pointed to me, share values with the organization that you're a part of? Lastly, the last form is person vocation fit. And in short, what this is saying is, are you skilled at what you do? And if you're skilled at it, do you also enjoy what you're doing? And the PowerPoint of the text is going to say, is the fit between a person's interests, abilities, values, and personality, and the profession that they're engaged in. So now that we know all the different types of fit within an organization and an individual, a great way to discover how well we fit with an organization or how well others may fit with an organization is to look at our personalities. So let's go over to the next slide. Come with me. Let's look at personality frameworks. Personality is the relatively stable set of psychological attributes that distinguish one person from another. The textbook labels 2 main frameworks of personality. The first is the Big Five, as you see a picture of a Big Five. And the next is the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, which is listed as MBTI, and that's how I'm going to refer to it for the rest of the time that I'm talking about the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. So let's go over to the next slide and talk more about those. The Big Five personality traits basically is saying that no matter what personality traits any of us may have, they all, to some degree, fit into these 5 personality traits. So if you're looking at the picture, on the left side, the purple circle, we're going to start there. Those 5 traits are agreeableness, openness, extroversion, or introversion on the opposite end of that, conscientiousness, or stability. Now, if you look at the textbook, you'll see the word neuroticism. That word is taking the place of stability. Stability is of having a very low level of neuroticism, and I'm explaining this to you so that there's no confusion in what the Big Five are. Stability is just, like I said, the lower version of neuroticism, and if you have a high level of neuroticism, then you're not stable, which is okay because we each fit into some mold of the Big Five. Now, the other personality framework is the MBTI. And what that is, that tells us 8 different personality traits, and we fall into 4 of those 8 personality traits. And as you see in the picture, it's a chart of 16 different combinations of those traits. So I'll explain that to you in briefly. We have E and I, that's extroversion versus introversion. Next we have S and N, that's sensing versus intuition. Then we have T and F, that's thinking versus feeling. And then we have J and P, that's judging versus perception. I've taken the MBTI before. I'm sure many of you all have at some point or another, a career, a class, something has required us to take this. If not, I think there's a link in the textbook that tells you where you can take the MBTI. So let's go on to the next slide, and I'm going to expound on I'm going to briefly talk about 8 more personality traits that the text listed, but I won't get the chance to expound on them. So 8 personality traits. Because of the sake of timing, I'm not going to expound on them, but I will list them, and I hope that you use the PowerPoint to read in detail what each of these personality traits mean and kind of see where you are in each of them. So we have locus of control, self-efficacy, self-esteem, authoritarianism, I don't know why that word didn't want to come out, Machiavellianism, tolerance for risk, and tolerance for ambiguity, type A and type B personality traits, and then lastly, the bullying personality. Generally, a bullying personality, you'll see that more from a supervisory standpoint than you would just like a lower level coworker, because they really don't have anyone to bully. If they do, they have that bullying personality down. They found somebody, but obviously that's not the best trait to have. So I'm going to move on. We've talked about our personality. So now we're going to talk, we're going to move on to the next slide, and we're going to talk about levels or types of intelligence. The textbook lists 3 different types of intelligence. That is general mental ability, multiple intelligences, and emotional intelligence. So the first one, general mental ability. Also, there's another definition in the text that says information processing capacity. And you can read and you'll see what those mean. But what I like about the textbook is that basically it summed up general mental ability as the ability to learn. So I won't expound on that too much further. We know what it means to learn, so I like that simple definition. That's what general mental ability is. Let's go to multiple intelligences. These are 7 different ways that we are able to gain intelligence. This can be through linguistic, logical, mathematical, musical, bodily or kinesthetic, spatial and visual, interpersonal or intrapersonal means of gaining intelligence. You can take a multiple intelligences test. I've taken one before. I obviously just like taking tests, but I've taken it before to find out my top 3 top 3 forms of multiple intelligences. It's very cool, and really they're accurate as far as I'm concerned. I know that the way that I learned, it was very accurate with that. So the last one is emotional intelligence. There are 5 ways listed, and those really have to do with the way that you understand emotions, use emotions, manage emotions, and are sensitive to others' emotions. So we're going to move on to the next slide. So since we know that we have intelligence and we learn things, let's look at learning styles to see exactly how we're going to learn this intelligence that we need. There are 3 learning styles listed in the text. Again, for the sake of time, I can't delve in too deep, but please look at the PowerPoint slide, use the textbooks also, and see about these 3 different learning styles. Your sensory modalities, that means we learn through our senses. Our learning style inventory is active and passive learning versus concrete and abstract learning. And then learning style orientations, and those are the ways in which we learn. Do we learn through exploring? Do we learn through hands-on? Do we learn through observing things and watching, taking notes, or working with others? So those are just some ways of how we learn. It's important to know those learning styles within the organization. So those are all the things that I want to cover from chapter 3. So if we jump over to the next slide, I'm going to sum everything up for you. In this presentation, we talked about chapter 3, the individual differences we have and fit within an organization. Personality frameworks are 2 main ones. We talked about personality traits, and those are 8 traits that are listed as important within the text. We talked about intelligence, and we talked about learning styles, the ways in which we can heighten our level of intelligence. So at the conclusion of this, which is coming up right now, I'd like to leave you with this question. In what ways have your personality traits contributed to the ways in which you fit a particular organization? As you answer this question, think about the different personality traits that are listed within this presentation.